Our next speaker, we have with us architect Kaif Faquih from Faquih and Associates on stage, and he will be sharing his expertise on boosting profits and optimizing the business side of design.
The reason for selecting this topic was that throughout my journey as an architect, I've always felt that much of our discourse and discussion goes on the side of design, conceptual thinking, sustainability, but not on the business of architecture, on the idea that what helps to run and further a practice, So that was the reason to select this topic. The question I want to ask is, why am I listening to this masterclass? And the reason is that whatever development we will see in the country over the next 20 years, 30 years is going to be prolific. It's established. So it must be design-centric, and that comes to our fraternity, that how we make it, make it a beautiful country and aesthetic journey, Also for the young design fraternity, and the idea that if you boost your profits, you can do bolder projects, you can do bolder design. So that is the reason for the raison d'être for this talk from my side. Now I'm just going to make it quick, 2 minutes per concept. I have selected 7 basic principles which I've kind of realized and come across are the main principles which can help any firm, younger, or likewise, to have a successful design practice. So the 7, I've just named them. These are, of course, names done for this conversation, this talk. The water bucket theory, which I will explain. The contract trap, deliverables, the productivity sermons, and the idea of branding, and then the idea of the waxing and waning sectors. I'll explain each concept to you. So one way to look at running a firm is you've got projects and you've got contracts which are coming in, and you've got an outgoing system of infrastructure, establishment, human resources, capital expenditures, and then you've got the profit. So this is a diagrammatic way of representing what's actually happening for anybody who's running in a solo practice or a firm or even a private practice for that matter. How do you increase that? So one method, which is obvious, is you increase the projects and contracts. That's a quantitative way of thinking, and hence you increase your profits. The second method is you tighten up the holes, and hence you boost. So point to understand is there's a rate of flow, and there's a rate of flow here. Okay, it's a concept that I'm trying to explain. If you look at your design practice this way, you can optimize either on the top or you can optimize at the bottom. So that's the first idea to remember. Now, most designers, most of us prefer and are right brain thinkers. We like the creative side, we like aesthetics, we are not so much into calculation, we're not so much into numbers. So, and this kind of, I've always seen it hurts the industry and hurts people in their progress. So what's the contract trap? If you look at it, essentially, most of your contracts, including ours, are on the logic of any of these 3 methods. It's a quantitative system. Either it's based on a per square foot cost, it's based on a lump sum cost, it's based on a percentage cost. By and large, you use these 3 systems. So that tells you that it's a quantitative way of analyzing your contract. But your expenditure is temporal. It's time-based. It's a concept that you need to focus a bit and understand. You're contractually engaging quantitatively, but you are expending temporally. So bills, salaries, capex, whatever you are spending, the expense logic is based on months, is based on years. So these two are actually not commensurate with each other. How do you solve that? And what are the consequences of that trap? So first consequence, project delay. You have an extension of the fixed contract, you deplete your profit. You have unlimited project iterations. Project keeps changing form and shape. Again, you've got unlimited man hours, depletion of profit. Miscalculation of the scope. It's a common problem. You've calculated certain extent of the industry that you need for the project, but the scope is miscalculated, so it drastically increases, depletion of profit. What can you do for that? So in this short talk, I'm just going to give you basics. You can build an inflation clause. Okay? Most of us who are experienced do that. You could have an extension contract clause which gives you retainership. Beyond a point, if the contract moves beyond a point, you will get a certain retainership in the contract. So in case the country is inflating at, say, 7%, cities normally would inflate higher at about 10 or 12, contract must build in inflation beyond the time that you have stipulated for the project. And most projects do get delayed. Then there's unlimited project iteration. You have to define the contract in terms of deliverables only. Now, this idea I'm going to cover very soon. And you have to have a rework clause. Miscalculation of the scope of the project, the doubling hypothesis. Whatever you do, just calculate double the amount of time then you have actually calculated for the project. Once you just double the time, you're in safer territory. That even if it goes beyond a certain scope, you still have the bandwidth for making your profit. Deliverables. This is an idea that I've worked with since a while. So rather than defining what we do as architects in very subjective terms that, for example, you will provide the design for these spaces and you will provide the finishes and all of these spaces. That's all in the air. But your receivables is tangible money. So how do you negotiate that? Standardize in the contract what are you liable to give to the project. Make it into a formal deliverable. The deliverable can be digital or it can be physical. Templatize the deliverable so that the deliverable is standard across, more or less across the projects that you do. This will help to ensure that once a deliverable is given, there's a clarity that you've completed the stage of your contract. And let the deliverables move in a sequence. So this like a bogies in a train, You finish one, then the second and the third. So essentially it becomes predictable as to what you are expected to do in the project. Most of the times I've seen that when we say that we've completed certain amount of work as architects and there's a dispute or a conflict that no, that's not the case and that's not very true. Deliverables helps to make an objective establishment of the same. Okay? And that once you've done these three, your contractual process is complete. Now the productivity side, first part is for the self. What can you do to increase your productivity, boost your profit in that sense? So first piece in the puzzle, and then these are the four things, that's your self up there. First is that you ritualize the way you work. If you ritualize the way you work and you read more about ritualization of work, it will ensure that most things are on track. I have very little time, so I'm going fast on this. The Pareto principle, those who know, means that it's 20% of the inputs actually give 80% of the output. So an example is that 20% of your projects give you 80% of the profits. And if you study that carefully, you'll know, or 20% of your staff gives you the 80% of the output. So this is a very common business principle, which if you study well, it'll effectively make you realize where the profits are actually coming from. Okay? Consistently reduce firefighting. We are all know how much firefighting we all do in our profession. So the effort must be to consistently reduce the firefighting. And then prevent the persistent problems. Step back, think about something that's recurring always in your professional life, which is a problem, of course, not the good part, but which is a problem, and then see how you can solve it in a more permanent way. When I say permanent, I always say 80-90%. If you have this habit of thinking permanent is 100%, it's never going to happen. Contingency will always take a little bit of that, of your expectations. And upstream thinking, which is having the ability to solve a problem way before it becomes a storm. This again causes issues in your project, issues in your profit. So you do a little upstream thinking. You find out that it probably, say for example, I'm going to be specific at the working drawing level, that yes, this is an issue, I need to solve this, otherwise on the project this will become a major issue. So that's the other thing. Productivity sermon of the team. This is for if you have an office, an organization, what you could do to boost them. Again, the team must adhere to a process. If each person who comes has a different style of working, you are going to be managing many people with many different styles of working, which is not going to be good for your firm. The process itself, as I said, must be deliverables based. So there's a clear idea that this is what needs to be produced. One deliverable, one person is responsible for that one deliverable. So it's very clear, and the buck stops at somebody in your firm. If it's going to be too much collaboration, then it's going to be the inefficiencies of blaming each other, and a strong feedback loop that adheres to the design process. So you need to have people who interact well, who are communicative, and they would ensure that the design process is honored. Now, next is the design channel. So I'll tell you, the decision channel is a concept that if you step back again and ask yourself that who actually takes the decisions in your organization or your firm, you would realize that generally, and I'm saying there are many exceptions, it all comes down to one person. So everybody is actually dependent on this individual, or two, or maybe three. But it comes down to one person. As opposed to this, if you train a group of individuals, and that's up to you, you would achieve this. So you would get a distributed system of decision making. With a distributed system of decision making, your output of projects increases. Your ability to do more sophisticated work increases. All of this obviously leads to a greater sense of profit. So that's the idea of here. Brand Raja Bharat is more about, which we all know, that if you increase your design value, that is how the market perceives you, and at what level and what distinguished level does the market think of you, and that would also enable you to increase profit. So say one value is credibility value, the achievements and accolades that you've received. That increases your design value and it moves ahead with your profits. One is perception value, whether through the digital media or implicitly. What is the perception value of yourself as an architect, interior designer, or your firm, And then is the goodwill value, the relationships that you build, across your journey as a designer. How valuable do people find you to have a recall or a referral, and that helps also to increase. So the idea of this talk again was to compile all of this and put it together in one document, kind of, one conversation. So this was this idea. Finally, I'm going to come to this very interesting idea, which is outside of what you can do, and something that's not in your hands, but must be thought about. It's called the waxing and waning sectors. So first, we know that architecture or interiors, is all dependent upon growth. You need to build a new hospital, you need to build a new house, you need to build a new cafe, you need to build a new restaurant or hotel. It's growth-related industry. So this is a given aspect of the industry. Now, architecture interior in some ways address the psychological, intellectual, aesthetic and functional human needs which are translated into material reality. So these are subjective needs which we are translating into material reality. Key note is it's eventually has to be material, like the place we are standing right now. A pragmatic way to define that reality is in sectors. So that's what I've done here for you. Industrial, commercial, retail, hospitality, there are endless number of sectors. Once you know these three concepts, you will realize that each sector has a expansion, contraction, which is a waxing and waning cycle. Now this is outside all the effort that you may do to boost your firm. The sector has its own life. So let's say these are the sectors, and let's say you are spanning 5 decades in your practice. You will see, as I've kind of graphically tried to show you, that there will be expansion cycles, there will be contraction cycles of different varying lengths. You need to be at least in 2-3 sectors. So even if you did everything right for 5 years in one sector, but tough luck, that sector went down, and that didn't give you, the opportunities, you at least have the other 2 sectors to fall back on. So that's a very important idea, which I felt to understand that multi-sectorial practice helps profits from an external perspective. Okay. And finally, why, again, I'm going to reinforce what I said in the beginning. We all want to do creative work. It gives us great satisfaction. It's what, uplifts ourselves as our souls. But at the same time, if you have a balance between the business side and the design side, you do get better and better. In my experience, I've seen that. Opportunities to raise the level of your design, your satisfaction. So in that sense, this slides just to show you that you need to balance your business with your design. And that's this talk was about. All right, thank you. Thank you.